Well, he was telling you
voted
that.
more, for more of the same.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I would have said at 10:07, nobody was going to be here except the board members, and look at you. Wow, you all came at the same time, I guess. But it was my pleasure to have dinner and to meet Bill and Barbara this evening. We've emailed back and forth and been on conference calls together, and it is amazing what he's put together in the Capital District area in fighting Agenda 21. So he agreed to come down, and he will be presenting after I do to talk about what they are doing. And he's been very kind to let me listen in and even speak on the conference calls and sending me all the information. They've been at this for over a year, and they've been successful in some areas, and I'll let him explain all about that. Kathy Gow will come up after we speak, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers, and you will answer as long as we have time to do it. And I think we have to leave at 10 o'clock, so and maybe the parks would like to get back to Albany before then, so they might have to cut out. So without further ado, I'll have to bring this over here. Difficulty. During this presentation, there are outcomes that we expect to achieve, and so we hope that you will learn what Agenda 21 is. Raise your hand if you know quite a bit about Agenda 21. You know quite a bit. Okay, good. Good. Raise your hand if you know nothing about Agenda 21. Good. Okay. So we hope you'll be informed citizens before you leave. We're going to talk about who is behind Agenda 21. We're going to talk about when Agenda 21 was written, where it is being implemented, and why Agenda 21 was created. And finally, how Agenda 21 can be stopped. So we're going to cover a lot of territory this evening. In June of 1992, while America was recovering from Desert Storm and enduring the process of a presidential election, the world was gathering in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, by the thousands to approve documents that would precipitate the largest peaceful transfer of power ever known to mankind. More than 18,000 people representing 178 governments were meeting to discuss Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, and the Statement of Principles for the Sustainable Management of Forests, and finally, the Biodiversity Treaty. Together, these documents fulfilled the mandate given by the United Nations General Assembly in 1989, calling for a global meeting to devise integrated strategies that would halt and reverse the negative impact of human behavior on the physical environment and promote environmentally sustainable economic development in all the countries. The agreements negotiated over a 2.5 years before the conference were discussed, they were finalized, and adopted. While they lack the force force of international law, the adoption of the texts carries with it a very strong moral obligation to ensure their full implementation. Agenda 21 stands as a comprehensive blueprint for action to be taken globally from now into the 21st century by governments, United Nations organizations, development agencies, non-government organizations called NGOs, and independent sector groups in every area in which human activity impacts on the environment. I'm going to say that one more time. In every area in which human activity impacts on the environment. Underlying these Earth Summit agreements is the idea that humanity has reached a turning point. We can continue with present policies which increase poverty, hunger, sickness, and illiteracy, and cause the continuing deterioration of the ecosystem on which the Earth depends, or we can change course. We can act to improve the living standards of those who are in need. We can better manage and protect the ecosystem and bring about a more prosperous future for us all. No nation can achieve this on its own. Together we can, in a global partnership for sustainable development. To that end, the General Assembly established the United Nations Commission of Sustainable Development. Its function is to examine progress made in implementing Agenda 21 globally. So this is a global outreach that people from every nation attended and agreed to. So what is Agenda 21? Agenda 21 stands as a comprehensive blueprint for action to be taken globally from now into the 21st century by governments. The United Nations, development agencies, non-governmental organizations, and independent sector groups in every area in which human activity impacts the environment. So this is what Agenda 21 is all about. This definition comes from the book you see pictured here, and is the United Nations Program to Action to implement the Rio Declaration on Environment Developments, Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, and the Statement on the Management, Conservation, and Sustainable Development of Forest Principles, as agreed to by 178 nations at the Earth Summit held in Rio in June of 1992. And right now I'd like to show you a copy of that book. You can actually buy this from the UN for $25, $5 shipping, and have it for your own, or you can download it and copy it as well. This is a section, Agenda 21, is actually just one of the pieces that they agreed to. In here, you will also find a section that they agreed to called the Rio Declaration of Environment and Development. And these are principles that were agreed to by all of the people that attended the meeting. And there are 27 of them. Then you have the pages of the agenda, how it will be implemented, and then in finance, how it's going to be put in through education, all the way back until you get to the portion that has to do with forest principles, because we're not using our forests sustainably. So that was another section. that mean? Well, let's take a look at just a few of the principles. Principle 1, human beings are at the center of concerns for sustainable development. We are the people, we are what's causing all the problems on Earth, according to Agenda 21 specialists. We'll skip to Principle 4, environmental protection shall constitute an integral part of the development process. So it's all about the environment. Principle 5, all people shall cooperate in eradicating poverty. The bottom line is it has to do with poverty. This is the way it's being delivered to us. It's about the environment and it's about poverty and how we're going to take care of both of those issues. So, note in Principle 1 that human beings are of great concern regarding sustainable development. In Principle 4, note that to develop successfully, the environment has to play a role. If you wondered why it's green this, green that, I mean, you can't turn the TV on or go into a store, but they're promoting something green. Personally, I'm getting sick of the color. Okay? Principle 5, please note that eradicating poverty is high on the list. Now we'll go on to Principle 7, which says states shall cooperate in a spirit of global partnership to conserve, protect, and restore the health and integrity of the Earth's ecosystem. So this is something we're all going to do together. Principle 8, states should reduce and eliminate unsustainable patterns of production and consumption, because we're consuming way too much, folks, from our eating to the use of our power, to the use of our land, to the use of the air, to the water. And guess what? It's the Western nations that are the biggest culprits. Principle 11, states shall enact effective environmental legislation. Now, states with a capital S, meaning nations, not United States states. Principle 15, in order to protect the environment, the precautionary approach shall be widely applied by states according to their capabilities. Now, it's important that you understand what the precautionary approach is. Those of you that are struggling to get your gas rights, drilling rights, this is being used to stop you. The precautionary approach should be used to protect the environment. This is what the UN says. This requires that action be taken before there can be any detrimental impact, even though the actual effects are not immediately perceptible. It puts the burden of proof on the proponent of an activity that there will be no adverse impact on the environment. This is why the scare has been your water wells, your water wells, your water wells, your health, what you're going to be breathing, and so on. It is relevant when there isn't sufficient scientific information to make an informed decision regarding the activity. And they will stall and stall and stall. Now, people have asked me, what do you think Cuomo's going to do about the gas regulations? Well, we've stalled for 4 years now. He's president again. He's totally against all fossil fuels. So I would say I'd put my bet on you're not drilling. We'll see. He wants to be president in 2016, so this is also going to be part of the decision. These are a few of the principles that will have an impact, and really are having an impact, on the ways humans live on the earth. As to what the impact translates into will be revealed as we continue to explore the agenda. I should probably stop here and define sustainable development, which is not an easy thing to do. Every author and document seems to have a different twist on it. However, the earliest definition comes from a 1972, mind you, some of you may not have been born then, Brundtland report, and is widely recognized as accurate. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So the first time in American history, we are told to believe that the generations after us will not be able to take care of themselves, that we need to begin adjusting our lifestyle now in order for them to even survive come another 50 to 100 years. This is not a way Americans have thought ever. Another comes from 1987, is from the United Nations report of the World Commission of Environment and Development, a mode of human development in which resource use aims to meet human needs while preserving the environment so that these needs can be met not only in the present, but also for generations to come. The thought behind this is they're not going to be able to figure out how to move forward. We have to do that for them. This same commission also states the definition contains within it two key concepts. The first concept is the concept of needs. In particular, the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. That's key to understanding what's going on. When you hear about taxing the rich, when you hear about the resources of America that have gone overseas, it was not an accident, folks. It was not an accident by either Republican presidents or Democrat presidents. They both buy into this. Secondly, the idea of limitation imposed by the state of technology and social organization on the environment's ability to meet present and future needs. So technology is to blame, and our social organization is to blame because it's not equitable. The people living in poor conditions, wherever they are in the world, should not be living that way, nor should we, the rich people, be living the way we are. We need to make it socially equitable. Keep those words in mind. It's one of the big 3 E's of the Agenda 21. Equity, E, environment, E, economy, E. That's what it's built around. In other words, what's currently being done by technology and society to overuse the Earth's resources, that regulations and limitations must be put on both. Okay. There's the line that I'm looking for. Okay. Let's talk about the pillars of sustainable development. The first one is economic development. The second one is social equity development. There's your second E in red. And third, environmental development. That's the third E. Notice the letter E is highlighted in red for the first 3 pillars and are referred to as the 3 E's of sustainable development. However, there are some indigenous people who have argued that there are 4 pillars of sustainable development, and so the 4th and less known one was added. The PowerPoint that you're going to be seeing following my PowerPoint will talk just about the first 3. The Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity in 2001 further elaborates the concept by stating, thus, it is a means to achieve a more satisfactory intellectual, emotional, moral, and spiritual existence. So they're bringing intellectual, emotional, moral, and even religion into the Agenda 21. So what else happened in Rio? Well, first of all, they had 15 forest principles were also presented and discussed and approved at the Earth Summit, along with the Agenda 21. The guiding objective of these principles is to contribute to the management, conservation, and sustainable development of all kinds of forests, and to provide for their multiple and complementary functions and uses. So private individuals can no longer do this. The government must have control so that we make sure that our forests are sustainable. You may have seen the government grab for land. If not, Google it and just find out how much of America the government now controls and owns. And this is for a reason. This is so that we can't build on it, so that we can't use it, so we can't drill on it. You know where this is going next. Not part of Agenda 21, but also just as significant, which I think is just as significant, was the Convention on Biological Diversity, which you don't hear as much about. The Earth's biological resources are vital to humanity's economic and social and environmental development. As a result, there is a growing recognition that biological diversity is a global asset of tremendous value to present and future generations. At the same time, the threat to species and ecosystems has never been so great as it is today. Species extinction caused by human activities continues at an alarming rate. So, now we're into plant life and animal life. And again, as good American citizens, we cannot take care of this ourselves. So the government's going to help us with that through Agenda 21. The Convention on Biological Diversity is an international, legally binding treaty. The convention has 3 main goals: conservation of biological diversity. We can't let any flower die away, or any insect, any animal. Everything must be conserved. 2, a sustainable use of its components. 3, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. In other words, its object is to develop national strategies for the conservation, sustainable use of biological diversity. It is often seen as the key document regarding sustainable development. 193 countries are parties to the convention. The United States is a non-party. The U.S. has signed but not ratified the treaty. And even though it's signed, it can still be enacted even though Congress has not approved it. It is in force until it is not in force. Yes?
I'm sorry, what was the name of the legally binding document?
It is called the Convention on Biological Diversity. That was brought forward at the same time. That is the one that was not signed. Agenda 21 was. We'll stay here. Okay, at this point, I am going to play a professional PowerPoint done by a gentleman named Mr. John Anthony. He is a former teacher, and he has currently dedicated a lot of his time and resources to fighting Agenda 21. He put together a PowerPoint presentation that I found excellent. His major focus in his PowerPoint presentation is what's it going to do to our property rights. That's just one of the freedoms that's going to be impacted and is being impacted. Especially if you know anything about California, being impacted tremendously there. So if you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to take the microphone. Hank is going to help me take the microphone over here, and I will start John Anthony's PowerPoint presentation.
Information. As Americans, our property rights matter. Land, buildings, and material goods are the means by which we live. Without rights over our property, we have no rights over our very means of survival, and therefore we are no longer free. Our founding fathers knew this and declared our rights unalienable, meaning no person could ever take them away. So critical are property rights that our Constitution protects them in the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Individual rights and freedoms are two elements that make America exceptional. Not all nations think that way. Sustainable development was coined in a 1987 report to the UN called Our Common Future. It is defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This sounds fine until you read the report. It states, poverty is a major cause and effect of global environmental problems. It then blames nations like the United States for consuming too much and having too much wealth, much of it in the form of private property. The report concludes the only way to make the future sustainable is to reduce America's living standards and transfer our wealth to developing nations. The radical ideas promoted in Our Common Future were codified as Agenda 21 at the 1992 UN Conference on Environment and Development, known as the Rio Earth Summit. 18,000 people from around the world attended. Agenda 21, according to the UN literature, is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the UN system in every area in which human beings impact the environment. More than 178 nations adopted Agenda 21, including George H.W. Bush for the United States. Although Congress never approved the program, President Clinton established by executive order the President's Council on Sustainable Development, whose stated purpose was to implement Agenda 21 in the United States. The President's Council on Sustainable Development operated through 1999, but its actions are now embedded in every federal agency and influence state and local communities across the United States. President Obama's Executive Order 13575 created the White House Rural Council, which further authorized every federal agency to oversee all food, fiber, and energy needs for all rural sustainable communities in America. The UN groups use the terms sustainable development and Agenda 21 interchangeably. Most people never heard of Agenda 21, and here's why. J. Gary Lawrence is a world leader in smart growth. He served as advisor to the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Writing for the Millennium Papers, a strategic planning publication for Agenda 21, Lawrence said, participating in a UN-advocated planning process would very likely bring out many who would actively work to such as comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth. And they have. Agenda 21 uses warm and fuzzy names that blanket in environmental causes like smart growth, open spaces, and social justice, to name a few. Regardless of the name, the intention is to remove this, called urban sprawl, and replace it with this, often whether you want it or not. Agenda 21 mandates that all states, including the United States, must resolve all environmental disputes peacefully and in accordance with the Charter of the UN, not in accordance with our own nation's laws. Our Constitution says that man's rights are inherent to his nature as a man, and as such are unalienable. This is in direct opposition to the UN Declaration, which holds that man's rights are granted by other men and therefore can be taken away by men. Sustainable Development's political agenda originates in the UN's founding documents. This is not surprising, since many of the nations represented needed a point of agreement to rally around. The UN Charter provided that. Whereas our Declaration of Independence protects our citizens and their labor, the UN Declaration grants government the authority to withhold your property for the good of the community. To implement sustainable development in the United States, unalienable rights such as the right to property must be eroded or struck down altogether. The authors of Agenda 21 said it will affect every area of all human life grouped according to three objectives: equity, economy, and the environment. By defining these terms vaguely, a litany of abuses in states, counties, and local communities has resulted. By rubber stamping preconceived plans, using manipulative visioning and consensus sessions to create the appearance of public buy-in, and acquiring grants from sources with questionable motives, the entire process of implementing sustainable development policies is suspect. Social equity means using the law to restructure American life. The authors of Sustainable Development knew their objectives would clash with those of the average U.S. citizen. Therefore, to achieve their objectives, they called for a shift in attitudes. The premise of sustainable development is that individual human wants, needs, and desires must conform to the views and dictates of the planners. Harvey Rubin, executive member of ICLEI, has said that individual rights will have to take a backseat to the collective in the process of implementing sustainable development. The next D is economy. Remember, Agenda 21's core purpose is the international redistribution of wealth and the creation of public-private partnerships. Maurice Strong, at his opening speech at Agenda 21 Earth Summit in 1992, said, "Current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class involving high meat intake, use of fossil fuels, appliances, home and work air conditioning, and suburban housing are not sustainable." According to Agenda 21's preamble, the developmental and environmental objectives of Agenda 21 will require a substantial flow of new and additional financial resources to developing countries. This declaration mandates if the conditions of the poor are to be improved, wealth must be taken from the rich, in this case, U.S. property owners. Sustainable development planners use conservation easements, eminent domain, reauthoring of master community plans, enhanced regulations, and millions of dollars in grant money to acquire private property as the means to redistribute wealth both in theory and practice. This is effectively lowering the U.S. standard of living to that of the rest of the world. Agenda 21 states that equity will be achieved through implementation of the international economic order and through transfers of resources to developing countries. In addition to its appeal for international redistribution of wealth, sustainable development restructures the economy by replacing our free enterprise system with public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships provide lucrative contracts for those companies partnering with the government and non-governmental agencies, while non-partnered companies struggle to survive against their subsidies, regulations, tax breaks, and insider privileges. With it goes the free market system. Sustainable development places nature over man. According to the Rio Declaration, human beings are at the center of concerns for sustainable development. We are only entitled to a healthy life if it is in harmony with nature. It continues, to achieve sustainable development, states should reduce and eliminate unsustainable patterns of production and consumption. Most people support laws to protect the environment. Sustainable development uses the environmental movement as the means to promote a political agenda. ICLEI is the non-governmental organization tasked with rolling out sustainable development. Their action plan restructures the world's governments so that all people will be the subjects of a global collective. The implementation requires the surrender of many individual and property rights. Once fully implemented, ordinary people will be left unprotected from de facto decrees placing nature above man while relegating Projects are often initiated by groups such as ICLAI or the American Planning Association, who create fear over problems portrayed as a crisis. Farmland development, urban sprawl, poor water management, wildlife preservation, or too many cars on the freeway are examples. Stakeholder council meetings are typically arranged under the auspices of soliciting input from community members. Often these are already supporters of the plan. Surveys poll a small number of residents and include loaded questions such as, which of the following areas do you think should be protected or acquired? A typical stakeholder council meeting is run by a trained facilitator. His job is not to enter all views into the record, but to guide the group to a predetermined consensus. Tactics vary between facilitators, but consensus generally is reached by subtly marginalizing opposition while recording the good ideas and allowing criticism only for the bad ones. Once a problem has been identified, every NGO, nonprofit, and local government has a vast stock of boilerplate solutions at hand, enabling them to identify problems with the goal of implementing predetermined outcomes that advance sustainable development policies. The same stock solutions are applied in Stockholm, Boulder, Santa Cruz, or anywhere in the world. ICLAI, whose mission is to help local governments implement sustainable development, has worldwide offices and operates in over 600 U.S. communities. Today, every county in the United States has sustainable development directives guided by federal agencies, NGOs, and/or ICLAI. NGOs often gain local community compliance with promises of funding grants. Their list of money sources is impressive and includes the Nature Conservancy, the Sierra Club, the National Audubon Society, the American Planning Association, and the National Teachers Association. Over 2,000 NGOs are accredited by the United Nations for the purpose of implementing sustainable development in America. They receive massive tax advantages from the IRS. This map shows the UN's vision for our country's land use when sustainable development is fully implemented. The black areas are where humans will be permitted to live. Sustainable development is a plan for global control using land and resource restriction, social transformation through education, and other programs. The land use element of sustainable development calls for 2 action plans designed to reduce or eliminate private property: the Wildlands Project and Smart Growth. Upon implementation, all human action is subject to control. Since all things ultimately come from natural resources on rural lands, the transfer of the land from citizen to government control will make it easy for government and its partners to control what we have, what we do, and where we go. The rural land use embodied in the Wildlands Project is tied to its urban counterpart, Smart Growth. As human beings are barred from rural land, there will be a concentration of human activity in urban areas. Through Smart Growth, the infrastructure is being created for a post-private property era in which human action is subject to the centralized government planning. Sometimes called comprehensive planning or growth management, Smart Growth is the centralized control of every aspect of urban life, including energy and water use, housing, population growth and control, public health and dietary regimens, resources and recycling, social justice and education, toxic technology and waste management, transportation and air quality, business, and economic activity. Citizens are becoming aware. Commissioners in Carroll County, Maryland abolished the Office of Sustainability. Spartanburg, South Carolina, Las Cruces, New Mexico, New Rochelle, New York, Amador County, California, Carver, Massachusetts, and dozens of other communities are either pulling out or pushing back against ICLAI, the American Planning Association, and Smart Growth. Here are 8 steps officials can take to protect their citizens' property rights. Place individual property rights first in all planning negotiations and actions. Refuse federal or state money for new sustainable development programs and transition out of existing ones. Do not accept grant money without examining all of the attached stipulations. Avoid consortiums for the purpose of obtaining grant money. Avoid partnerships with the federal government, HUD, NGOs, foundations, and corporations that advance the sustainable development agenda. Be certain any plan you implement can be repealed if it is found to infringe on individual property rights. Work with citizens to create a property rights council, and work with planners who will protect citizens' property rights. Our local communities are in peril because a small group seeks to convince us that unless we surrender our property and freedoms, unless we subsume our individual rights to the good of the community, the planet will not survive. Yet this is a false choice. For over 200 years, Americans have protected our planet, our nation, and our liberties. As communities, we can pull together some resources to check for more information. Thank you.
The handout I gave you summarizes everything that he spoke about. It goes by quickly, it's about 14 minutes long. So if you're new to this, it's like, whoa, there's so many things to be alarmed about, I can't hear all of them. So it's on the front and on the back. And I've also listed a lot of resources, websites that you can go to, and books. Some of them I have up front that you can look at. These are not for sale or for taking, however. The Rise of Global Governance. Henry Lamb was probably the first man to understand what was happening regarding Agenda 21. And he began writing about it. He was a lone voice for many years. And as you heard me say, this has been growing for a very long time, the idea of it. Back in 1972, there's evidence that this kind of thing was being thought about and being put together. So anything you can read from Henry Lamb is gospel. You may have heard, if you're a Fox News listener, here come the black helicopters. This is excellent about the United Nations and its agenda for the world. Another good one on the topic is ClimateGate. What is this huge fear that we're in the process of killing ourselves? Brian Sussman is an expert in this area. I think you'll find it a good read. He also has written Eco-Tyranny, and that's really what it is. Every aspect of our lives will be regulated. You think not? Think about what has been done in New York City. Certain amount of drink that you can buy. You can't have the 32 ounce or whatever it was. Now it's got to be 16 ounce. I just heard this week, Los Angeles, I believe, is having meatless Mondays. Yep. Cows, folks, are not sustainable. So they're vegetarian. So if you're a vegetarian, you're on the right side this time. Another one I just received in the mail, and it's from the site Democrats Against Agenda 21. Be sure to go to that website. Rosa, and I don't know if it's Choir or how you pronounce her last name, but she is fabulous, and most of her presentations are on YouTube. You can listen to them. She is fabulous. Her knowledge and her fight in California is to be commended. These people trying to stop Agenda 21 are warriors as much as people in Afghanistan. They are defending our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our freedom. This is called Behind the Green Mask. And if you buy a book, they send you a sticker for your automobile. I have one on the back of mine now. It says Stop Agenda 21, and underneath it, it says Democrats Against Agenda21.com. I figure with that on there, my car is most likely not to get molested in New York. The only other signs are ones that I can I use the big poster paint things that you can buy for window painting. They're excellent. If you're fed up with something and you want to tell people about it, print it across your back window and ride around honking your horn so people can see what's upsetting you. Another DVD is Agenda 21, How It Will Affect You. It's 21 minutes long. It is excellent. I highly recommend that one. Now up here I have numbered 1 through 8 in red. Your opportunity to get copies of these. I'm asking you not to take them. They're my samples. But if you want one, some of them are 2 sheets, so pick up both sheets. Print your name and your email address. And I can send it to you by email. So if you would like any of these, feel free to put your name on the back. There are a couple of other things up here, I guess, that you can pick up, and there's a Freedom Patriot newspaper that really has some great articles. And if you didn't get it when you came in, I think Sandy is about to pass out a wonderful brochure. Can I have one of those, Sandy, for just a second? This is another website that's really good about Agenda 21. Have you heard of Eagle Forum? Yes. That's Phyllis Schlafly's website. Excellent for study of any time. She covers it all. So you can make more copies of this as well. Another great short course is Sustainable Development. This I do have several copies of. They are $5. So if you would like a copy tonight, you're welcome to purchase one of them. I do have the map that gives me nightmares. Hank, could you pass this out? Everybody gets a copy to show your friends. Now, unfortunately, the black dots don't show up on there. But you can figure it out, because if you can't live in the yellow or the red areas, and the green areas are suspect, where are we going to live? Now, this seems impossible, doesn't it? It sounds, no American will allow this to happen. It's happening. In the New Rochelle area, I was talking to a county supervisor over there. They are demanding for social equity to build, well, how should you call it, low-income housing in the middle of a gated community with $500,000 homes in it. New Rochelle, as you heard from there, threw it out. So it is happening. The social equity means we have to transfer our wealth as a country to the poorer countries. This is why when you hear Obama say, you know, this taxing the rich to help the poor, he not only does it on a person-to-person level, he's doing it our entire country. To bring us down so we will not be a superpower. That is just beyond anything that they think that in the end this is going to stop wars. That, I guess that's
good job so far.
And all of this, yeah, and all of this is supposed to happen by 2050. Now, kind of expensive, but a wonderful resource is Tom DeWeese, who is, again, for 20 years have been speaking about this, is a kit. At the time I bought it, you could get it for $145. I think he sells it now for $159. If you look at the back of your sheet that I passed out, it will tell you everything that's contained in the kit. If you read the manual and you go through the workbook, you will understand Agenda 21, and you will understand ways to stop it as well. That was the part I liked the best. I was so bummed out reading the first banner. It was really good to find out there are ways that we can stop this. Now you may think, what's that got to do with Broome County? Right here, folks. This is the plan for Broome County. I've downloaded all of it from the internet. They won't give you the books. I called and asked for the books. They're not available.
You have to buy it?
No, you can't even buy it. You can't even buy it.
So what
This is the comprehensive economic development strategies. As you can see, some of it's dating back as far as 2006. They have been planning for Broome County. Now, you may have read about this. This is the governor's new open for business. Do you remember seeing this in the newspaper a couple years ago? Regional Economic Development Councils implementing a new operating model for the New York State government. A new operating model. What could that mean? Is there something wrong with the New York State Constitution? That we need a new operating model? Now let me tell you what I've learned. I've been to a couple of their meetings. And Tom DeWee's advice is that you go like an idiot, dressed really down, and not, you know, and just like, oh, I just kind of showed up here and thought it sounded good, you know, and now, what is this sustainable, you know? So I'm saying, now, the second meeting I went to, and I said, well, you know, guys, I did a little research, and I said, I came across this thing called ICLEI. Do you know anything about ICLEI? Oh, no, don't know anything about ICLEI at all. Well, that's the non-governmental organization that's implementing the UN mandates for Agenda 21. They don't know anything about ICLEI. They're not tied to the UN at all. Never, not tied. What is the definition of sustainable development? Well, now I don't really know, ma'am, but I think it has to do with an old Iroquois tribal saying that we must honor the earth and take care of the plants and animals. I said, oh, sounds good to me. You know, I said, I love plants and animals. Sounds good to me, sir. So, of course, I'm downloading this stuff and reading this stuff in between, and I said, so then during this candidate season, I cornered Donna Lupardo about this. And I said, Mrs. Lupardo, do you know anything about Agenda 21? Never heard of it. Sustainable development? Never heard of it. I said, did you know you're participating in it? I am. I said, yes, you are. And I showed her this, and I said, according to this, your name is in here. You're participating in this. You're promoting this. And I said, but oddly enough, Mrs. Lupardo, apparently you're not allowed to vote. That's true. So I said, let me see if I've got this right. There are 20 people in the Southern Tier Economic Region who were chosen to be on a council. That's right. Elected officials can attend. That's right. Elected officials can't vote. That's right. So I said, so we have unelected officials who are spending taxpayer money or grant money to implement projects in our county and all the other 8 counties we're associated with, and making the decisions of what projects they will be and how much money they will get. Unelected officials, I said, that's right. I said, the problem with that is it seems like a shadow government to me, doesn't it to you? Well, she was really flustered, I'll tell you, and the people in the room just getting so excited. They had never heard of Agenda 21. And anyway, I said, I have a problem with that, Mrs. Lupardo. I said, I elected you, or the citizens elected you to do this stuff. Why are we having to get unelected officials to do something that's your job? That's what they do. You see, if you're granted the money, if your project is approved, and that's done by unelected officials at the state level, if that money is approved, you have to do it their way or else you don't get the money. And guess what? It all has to do with how much impact does your project idea have to do with GHG, greenhouse gases. Now, it can be water projects, because our water has to be controlled, folks. It can be about pollution, because our air needs to be controlled. It can be about farmlands. They'll help you with so many things that sound wonderful, but it has to be their way. and it comes with strings attached. So you have to be very careful, as Mr. Anthony suggested, about accepting any money from these people for anything. Unelected people are making choices for you. Now, I said to Mrs. Lepardo, what if I don't like one of the projects? I'm against it. Well, she said, we hope you would like all of them. But I said, but what if I don't? But she says, I said, no, I know what you have approved in the past, but I said, what if you approve something in the future I don't like? What do I do? Well, there's really nothing you can do about it. So I said, I can throw you out of office if I don't like what you're doing. But this unelected group, I have no recourse. That's right.
They bring their own candidate back in.
So you see, it doesn't make any difference about our elected officials, whether they're for it or against it, because this group now has power. They have power. They've got the power. Our elected officials cannot even vote on what they're discussing. And everything has to do with the 3 E's. You can find it right in here. It's about the economy, it's about equity, and it's about environment.
Where on the internet would I find the name of these people?
You know, it's funny, I was going to give you a copy of that. I think if you just, I'll tell you where they're located. I never dreamed they'd be in this radio building down here on State Street. It's a white building. I think a limousine company and a bus company used to be on the 1st floor.
Yeah.
They're located on the 2nd floor.
Is it Southern Tier East Regional Planning? Is that?
Yes, that's what it is.
It's by the old Hess gas station over here, heading down towards Binghamton Plaza from Binghamton.
From going down past the Binghamton Plaza
The old
toward
transit
Binghamton.
garage.
If you look, yeah, the old transit garage, if you look upstairs, it's not well marked. All you'll see is the 375. But I was actually in their facilities and listening as we were visioning. This is what they do. For the project that's being presented. And what his former job is to bring the rest of you around to agree. It is a little we do need to take care of the social equity. Forget that the Constitution talks about equal justice. I don't see anything social justice in there. We have equal justice, but as far as I know, never going to be utopia here on earth, folks. Like Jesus said, there will always be poor people among you. and that is indeed tragic, and it is not to say that we shouldn't do something about it, but we should never be forced to do something about it. This is why he could take our oil derricks after this big crisis we had, send them over to Brazil. Was it Brazil? And then tell them we'll just be your best customer. I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? And it doesn't make sense till you understand the agenda. We have to give away America's wealth. This is what it's all about. We have to, and we cannot be the superpower. So, with that in mind, that was mainly the thing that I wanted to tell you. I am looking for people who would like to help me fight this. I see a hand in the back. All right. Yes. As a matter of fact, Sandy has said that she will be the captain of Tioga County. She's going to locate all of the officials that we need to send materials to. This is why Bill is here. He's going to talk about what this group is doing and supply us with the materials and send them out. You know, this is a patriot you're looking at right here. He's dedicated some of his business space to an office to stop Agenda 21 with telephones, with mailing, with copy machines. everything is at our access. He has shared everything. So I'll let him explain what he does, but I'm looking for people in different counties that would like to help stop Agenda 21. So I guess I'll ask Sandy if she's got an extra piece of paper over there. If you would sign that at some point. And I'm going to ask Bill if he'll come up now. And let's welcome Bill Park.